you need all opinions in the room to add to the conversation.
And you are, you're bombarded by these ads, aren't you, on Instagram or your social platform of choice every day. And when there is a real person telling you about their experience, you make a judgment at that point, don't you? Do I believe them? Does that feel real? Do they feel like a real person? Do I see myself in them? In some way, can I connect with them?
Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Marketing in the Madness. Now, as I say every bloody week, but it is true, I have another fantastic guest for you today. So not only does, I'm going to hopefully say your name right, Joanna Lyall? Mm-hmm. Yes, got it right. Not only does Joanna have agency experience, she has now launched her own business alongside Debbie Wasco, who is also a previous guest of the podcast. And gosh, now who's Debbie's business partner?
Anna Jones.
That's it, Anna Jones. All three of you, fantastic and formidable businesswomen. The business that they have launched is called the Better Menopause. And as a woman in her early 40s, I have an awful amount of questions for you today. But we're going to delve into a couple of different subjects today, guys. So we're going to start with talking about, I guess, Joanna's experience in marketing, also about setting up her own business and approach to marketing and launching a business. But then also we're going to cover off some of the challenges that we face as women hitting the menopause. So there is a lot in today's episode. It's going to be mega. So I'm going to get started. So I've kind of already started to introduce you, Joanna, but you're going to be able to tell your story so much better than me. Give me a bit of the Joanna background, what you've done, and then let's talk about, I guess, the business that you've now set up.
Great. So probably a bit of an unusual background in that I've got kind of two prongs to my career. I've got a nutrition path and also a media and marketing path. And both have been running actually for quite a similar amount of time. And I had a side hustle before that was a thing to be doing. And I'll tell you why I did that later on, but I qualified as a nutritionist back in 2006. And I started in media actually a long time before that in 98. And I loved both. So I've kind of kept them going concurrently. And it got to a point about 2 years ago, actually, about now, where I was really thinking, I want to use all of this experience that I've got, having worked in big corporate, so WPP, having worked in a brand new startup as first employee in the UK in Frida, in a scale-up in Brain Labs. I wanted to have a go of really doing it myself. And I had the fantastic opportunity of being introduced to Debbie and Anna, who had an idea. And they wanted somebody to come and join them to build it from scratch and run it, which is at the time what I did.
Amazing. So where did in fact, actually, let's go a little bit backwards. For those that don't know Debbie and Anna, can you tell, because they're just mega.
Yes.
I mean, I absolutely adore both of them. Their content on LinkedIn is fantastic. Can you tell the audience that maybe don't know who they are a bit about Debbie and Anna?
So Debbie Wasco, she's a multi-exit entrepreneur. Her first business was Love Home Swap that she sold. And then together, Debbie and Anna created Albright. I'm sure many women have either been there or are members, so they're very aware of that. And then the Better Menopause is number 4, actually, for Debbie, number 2 for Anna, I think. Anna's now CEO of The Telegraph. Debbie does all sorts of other things, as well as being exec chair for the Better Menopause.
Yeah, and is working, I think, with the government at the moment to create the biggest funding pool for female-funded businesses ever, which is mega.
It is. And as we've been through this process of raising money for the Better Menopause, I've also had kind of first-hand experience of seeing just how hard it is, even when you've got Debbie in the room.
Yeah, I think that's this isn't the subject of the podcast, but I'm just going to say it because I have discussed this with Debbie before.
Yeah.
And I think as a woman raising a fund, I'm actually interviewing someone else about this tomorrow, but raising money for a business that men don't understand when it's mainly male investors is bloody hard work, let's be honest.
Yeah, of course it is. I think if you've got somebody in the room that has no empathy or context or understanding for the business that you're creating, you're just making it even harder for them to invest. So you do need women to be sitting in that room across the table and able to write the checks. And that is a big part of the important work that Debbie is doing with the government initiative as well.
Yeah, more female investors as well.
With more money in their hands to invest in female-run businesses.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Isn't it?
Yeah, very excited. Going to be keeping a very close eye on that. So back to the Better Menopause.
Yeah.
So they had this idea. Why? What does the Better Menopause solve? What's the, I guess, premise of the business?
So the idea actually started with a product solution, and it came from an experience that Debbie had, as do many new business ideas. She'd been very unwell, and the long story short of that is she ended up with very poor gut health. And the doctor made a connection to how her menopause experience would be, or how her perimenopause at the time experience would be. And she was really shocked by that, hadn't ever heard of it, didn't realise that she could possibly be anywhere near perimenopause, didn't really even know what it was. And to know that because she'd had antibiotic treatment at such an extreme level that her gut health had been disrupted, it would make her menopause experience even worse. So she set out to find a solution. She thought, right, I want to find a product that's going to help replenish my gut and to make me feel better again and to combat some of these symptoms. And fast forward in time, that's how then we all got together, we got introduced. I knew they wanted to do something in gut health. As someone that had been studying and practicing nutrition for 20 years, I fundamentally understood the importance of gut health and how it connected to hormones. And what we all realised is that most women had no idea that their gut health or symptoms to do with gut health could be associated with what was happening with their hormones. So we set out to tell that story and to give them the first ever product that had been created to solve that problem. So that it's been a kind of journey of education for our community, for anyone that comes across us, just to start making the connection between what goes on in your gut, what goes on in your brain, what goes on with your hormones, and how fundamental gut health is to every aspect of your being.
I mean, there's been a lot of research, hasn't there? I mean, I am no expert, but I listen to a lot of podcasts about the relation of, your brain to your gut health and how much, the microbiome affects absolutely, probably most things in our body. That it is the brain of your stomach kind of thing. And it's so intrinsically linked to your brain. I mean, even we were just saying before, so I was like, hoping in my head, I think I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't be near menopause. I can't, I'm 42, quite happy to talk about my age. 42. And actually I'm starting, because I'm listening to, there's definitely a lot more education around perimenopause. I hadn't even heard of perimenopause a few years ago. Now I have, and I've got friends who are already on HRT who are, in their, again, probably 41, 42, still quite young. But I'm already starting now to recognize some things like we were saying this just off air, the mind block of certain words. I'm talking to my daughter and she's noticing it, and she's like, Mum, why can you, I can't think of the name of a kettle, or just the most obvious things, or have real mind block about certain words. It's not me, it's something that's changed in me.
Exactly.
So I'm guessing it is some kind of perimenopause, and I definitely feel that I need to get, tests done or to check, or maybe I don't, maybe I just need to start taking the Better Menopause and that will fix the problem.
So there's a lot happening in your body as you start to enter your 40s, and your estrogen levels will be declining but also fluctuating. So they can be much higher than they've ever been and also much lower than they've ever been. Also, your progesterone is declining and your testosterone are declining. And hormones are chemical messengers. They are sending messages all over our body all the time, communicating with every aspect of it. And in our gut, the microbiome in there is also communicating. So there's a group of bacteria in your gut known as the estrobolome, and they are communicating with your estrogen. And when the estrogen declines, so does that gut bacteria. And it's that's been linked to many of the 48 and counting probably symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. So our first product, which was the Better Gut, the probiotic, set out to try and correct that balance, to reintroduce gut bacteria that were known to communicate and work with our hormone levels, to work with estrogen, to work with progesterone, to start to either reverse or prevent some of those symptoms. And the results really have been astonishing in terms of the impact that it's making. And if you talk to our customers that have been taking it since we launched now, which was 22 months ago, they wouldn't be without it. because it's made such an impact to how they feel every day. And then from a nutrition perspective, I would look at gut health and probiotics as being a part of that, as a real solution, not only to solve problems in the now, but also as a kind of long-term solution for helping prevent future problems as well, and really boosting your health.
Yeah, I think that's been a real education for me, probably over the past 2 years, is the importance of my gut microbiome. I did the whole Zoe thing.
Did you? Okay.
Which I loved.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really geeky when it comes to like health and fitness, and I really enjoy learn. I mean, maybe I should have been a nutritionist.
Still time.
Yeah, exactly. I can learn whatever I'd like to learn nowadays. But I find psychology and specifically nutrition very, very interesting. So those two things kind of working together, which I guess this kind of is, I am incredibly keen on. So when I did that, I think the education to me of how important it was to have a variety of 30 different fruit and veg over the space of a week, really keeping track on that of that, and also look, because I actually thought, I was like, my microbiome would be fantastic. I've been taking Simprove, never know how to say that correctly. Simprove, for 4 years. So, and I did the Zoe test maybe 2 years ago.
And how were you?
Terrible. My gut microbiome was absolutely shockingly bad. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, it should be really good. So now I take various other extra things on top of the Simprove, or maybe I should just stop taking the Simprove and try taking Better Menopause. But I think there's definitely, for me, I can understand it. And also I've, probably now I'm a lot more aware around having a much wider variety, whereas I would just eat this an apple every day. Now I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll have my apple, but also I have some raspberries and some strawberries and something or whatever else, and then beefing up the amount of veg that I have in my salads and with dinner, so that I'm naturally also boosting it. I think I was heavily reliant on. I hadn't really got my head around the fact that actually to create a good gut microbiome, food is...
It's diversity of that food as well. And I think people get very stuck in eating the same things all the time. And that's habit and time and energy. And not everybody loves cooking. Not everyone loves cooking from scratch. But when you do cook from scratch, you realise actually how many different herbs and spices you can put into a meal as well. And they all count in your plant food count. So it's not just the fruit and veg, it's the herbs and spices, any grains, nuts and seeds, etc. And just being conscious of that diversity and not getting stuck in a rut of grabbing the same thing all the time can really make a very big difference to your health, not just in perimenopause, menopause, but actually for everybody to be thinking about. And I think Zoe have done a good job in making that point and creating that education. But it's interesting to me that they've created a sort of world where there are people going, oh no, like my gut microbiome isn't good enough. And who has decided what good should be? And is there enough nuance in there around, well, what's going on with that person's hormones, for example? Does it really recognize where you are in that journey, and therefore what your microbiome might look like and how you might want to correct it? And there are hundreds of different probiotics on the shelf. And again, sort of speaking from a nutrition perspective, I would use different probiotics for different people at different stages of life, or for different reasons. They can be used acutely after antibiotics or after illness, but they can also be used longer term to really work on different life stages, different aspects of health. So it's the strains that are in the product and the strength of them that will make the biggest impact to that person if you get the right one.
Yeah, I think that also for me has been a big education, where I used to be a big fan of vitamins. I probably am less worried about vitamins now. I'm more worried about pro, and vita biotics, which is like the vaginal biotic, or is that the word that I'm looking for? Have you heard of this?
I don't know if I heard of it being called vitibiotics, but you've got the vaginal microbiome, you've got the urinary tract microbiome, and they are all connected, all communicating with each other, but they also do relate back to the gut. Yeah. So if you're taking specific strains of bacteria, some of which actually are in the better gut, it will also help with maybe urinary tract infections, vaginal dryness, or recurrent thrush, and anything that's affecting you like that. Always go back to the gut. If you're seeing skin changes, go back to the gut, because it often starts there. That's where inflammation in the body starts. And when we have inflammation, we're going to feel it, whether it's in our joints, in our muscles, in our brain, in our energy levels, in our skin. you will see it somewhere showing up in the body. And if you can go back and just look at what's happening with somebody's gut health, you can start to kind of peel back sort of the layers of the onion essentially and work out, why is that happening? What can I do to try and correct it and to help that person sort of heal from the inside?
Yeah, it's super interesting, isn't it? I'm even thinking about my teenager, because she's 16 and she struggles with periods. She's probably going to be similar to me because I've got endometriosis.
Okay.
And she gets very heavy periods. So we put her on the mini pill, which I'm on, the progesterone only pill, which seems to be good for me. I don't feel as crazy as I used to feel when I wasn't on the progesterone only pill. But she's actually come off it again recently, and that she's really struggling with acne because of that. And I keep saying to her, I've bought her, pre and probiotics that specifically, hopefully to help, but she keeps forgetting to take them. And I was like, actually, that will probably help her if she actually regularly takes them. Will probably help her a lot.
There are other things as well she could consider. You have to book her in with me. We'll have
I'd love that. Yeah, no, 100%.
And help. I think that it's really interesting to see kind of what's going on for teenagers and what's going on for those perimenopausal women, because actually it's a similar change. One is the sort of the uplift of the hormones, and the other is the decline.
Downlift,
But it is a bit like it's happening in the same way, but just at different life stages. And you mentioned that you don't worry too much about the vitamins and minerals, but I would think that at different life stages, our body needs certain nutrients at a higher level because of some of those changes are happening, whether it's about growth or hormone production or brain development, or then the adaptation of declining hormones and how the body then goes on to cope with that. Certain vitamins and minerals can play a really important role in helping improve. It could be about improving immunity or improving sleep, just helping to kind of fix the gaps that are created by that change in hormones that leave us feeling depleted and just not really like ourselves.
Yeah, which happens more and more.
It does,
as we get older.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm going to flip this round. Rather than talk about, we're going to definitely talk about the marketing tactics and what you're doing with the business and the launch of the Better Menopause. But actually, what I'd like to talk about first is the challenges us women face when we hit perimenopause in the world of work. Because, hopefully, I mean, I'm sure a lot of my listeners are women, but even if they're men, hopefully they're still interested in listening, because it changes, even just me not being able to find the words that I need. I think there needs to be understanding within businesses that, when us women reach a certain age, there's, I think the stats are, well, you know them better than me, the stats in terms of women leaving the workplace because they've hit menopause are pretty stark. So maybe you can give me some of the stats.
Yeah, let's do some stats. So 30% of women consider leaving work when they're going through perimenopause and menopause because of how they feel. And a lot of that is about how much they then question themselves, their ability, their confidence, because all of that is often in decline. 10% actually do. A cost of the days off or lost resources in the workforce is around 1.8 billion for the UK. It's massive.
So we've got to find a solution, and also educate. I think businesses. That, let's be honest. Traditionally, the world of work has been more male dominated. Yes. So we need to educate men, but we also need to
especially at that age group as well.
Yeah,
everyone has to be educated, but the difference in even just 2 years is enormous. So I'm very kind of positive and hopeful about what that looks like ongoing now, and how much more comfortable and confident we can all be in talking about it, not shying away from it, and owning it, really, because it can also be an amazing transition point. It is a transition, and when you really maybe lean into that and accept it, rather than try and be in this kind of denial of it or hiding from, God, I don't want to be considered as old, and actually realize the benefits that can bring you, I think amazing things can happen.
I honestly feel like that person, and I'm very well educated and kind of don't really care how old I am.
No.
Yeah, I still keep saying to myself, no, Katie, you're not that person. You're not that old. You're not, because there's almost some kind of like shame around, which is mad, right? Like but I think because, I don't know, men can be feral until they're, I don't know, 60 maybe. It's very different, or maybe even older. I mean, men have fathered children at 70, whereas it feels like there's
Yeah.
something changing. We're losing something.
Yes.
We're not so much of a woman anymore. We're not as validated in life. For some reason, you know, even people that are well educated like me, I still don't want to own up to going, do you know what? I'm probably am in perimenopause.
Yeah. I think we've got to reframe it to be about something that's much more positive, which is we get to have another whole phase of our lives. We've had this phase of lives where for some women that is about creating the next generation, raising children and working and juggling that and doing everything. Not for everybody, but for those that have chosen that, fantastic. And then you've got this whole kind of second half that can be about something entirely different. And that might bring with it a new career. It might bring new relationships, a new level of confidence, just a complete new way of looking at life. So if we reframe it to this positive transformation rather than a kind of decline into old age and this disappearing of women, which is what we've all witnessed and seen, right? Whether we see it commercially and in content and advertising, etc., or we see it in the workplace, like where do they all go? And, you know, we're not ready to kind of go off to our cave and hide. This is a really powerful time in our lives when we've got so much experience, so much that we can bring to the table. This is when women should be put in the big jobs and given that opportunity to lead and to create and to bring all of their wisdom and experience to the workforce. So we have to help them do that.
I love that. I actually saw, I mean, I cannot even quote this, but a clip on Instagram. I don't know if someone sent it to me or I found it and sent it to someone else, but I definitely did send it to other people, where it said women are a different species to men.
Yeah.
Our brains are wired differently. And if you actually look at, I don't know, the evidence and the science, traditionally women actually make better leaders. And then they were also saying, I mean, again, don't quote me on this, but you can kind of look at the facts as in there are 14 times more men in jail than there are women. So we make more rational decisions. No offense to the guys listening, but I mean that's
superior
fact.
species.
We are the superior species. So, and we've got a lot of, you know, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that there's a superior species. I think, you know, we have equal value to add, and in order to innovate, we need every type of person, you know, regardless of race, gender, everything. In order to actually innovate and be bloody fantastic, you need all opinions in the room to add to the conversation. And I think that for me, it was kind of just a bit of a reminder, like, it's such a shame so many women exit the workplace when they're literally hitting the time of their life, when they have the most experience, the most knowledge. Like, it's gutting. So I think anything, and the stuff that you guys are doing with the Better Menopause, anything we can do to give women the confidence, even if it was a bloody placebo, like the fact that we're educating, the fact that we're trying to change, and also providing, you know, things that will actually help us feel better anyway. I think we're in a really, really strong place to start to make a change.
Well, you've really just described what the thinking was behind the idea of the Better Menopause as a brand and the mission attached to that, because it is about empowering women to use this as a time of life to be incredible, to be whatever they want to be, to educate themselves on what's happening with their bodies. And that's both in terms of understanding the science, if that's what they're interested in, but also really listening to themselves and trusting themselves as well with what they're feeling and what they're experiencing, to go out and make the right decisions to change whatever it is they want to change in their life, whether it's their health or relationships or career, whatever it is. This is the great time to be doing it.
Tick, tick, tick. All of those I want to improve, please. So let's move into talking about you setting up this amazing business. Talk to me about the challenges. I think that's always a good place to start. Like, you guys, you had this idea. And actually, I've set up a few businesses in my life, or been part of setting up businesses, but never actually a product, because you're actually designing a product. You're then thinking about how you're going to take it to market. So talk to me about some of the challenges, or some of the, I don't know, maybe not the challenges, but like how you went about actually even getting started with this business.
So this is definitely my first physical product experience. I've had digital products before, and it's a very different sell, and it's a very different business model, because you've got lots of logistics that come with physical product. both in terms of the design and creation of it, but also then the delivery of it and getting it into customers' hands. And then you get customer service and all of the things that go with that. And we launched the business and just got on with it. It wasn't a kind of, right, this is exactly how it's all going to play out because we've got the playbook. We know, what's going to work and what isn't going to work. You have to kind of go into, I think, any business like this, any D2C business, any startup with this will and desire to want to test and experiment and just to keep on building. Every day has been different. I've learned a huge amount in the last couple of years doing this. I've done things I've never done before, like run a Shopify platform and understand all the bits of technology that go alongside that to build the ecosystem to make it work as smoothly as possible. And you're working really on a shoestring. You know, there isn't endless cash that you can keep piling into marketing. So it's sort of very different, I suppose, to some of the clients that I would have advised and worked with in media agencies, where even if they thought they had a small budget, we've got a smaller one. So you have to be really careful with how you spend that, where you deploy it, what you're prepared to test, and be very okay with asking for help, looking for collaborations, looking for partners, looking for people that are prepared to help promote and tell the story of the brand. And what we all knew collectively at the beginning was that there were two things that were going to be really powerful for helping the business be successful, which I think were particularly important in year one when we went from zero to something successful, which was that content and community were going to be the drivers. And at the heart of that, you had to have authenticity. We needed real people telling real stories with people that you could trust. So me being a qualified nutritional therapist was important. Having a resident doctor was important because it builds trust, it builds credibility. It really helps customers make the right decision. And women, in midlife they're wise to it all. They've seen all the marketing. They've seen all the kind of the tricks in the book. And they're not just going to fall for any old Instagram ad that comes up and says, try this as a game changer. You're going to lose 50 pounds overnight and that's it. They are wise to that, and they know their ingredients and they know what they're looking for. So I've been really pleasantly surprised actually with how well educated a lot of the customers are when they come to us. They know what they're looking for and they know the questions to ask as well when they get on the phone with us as well.
I have loved watching your marketing, by the way, because I do get targeted for you.
Yeah.
In fact, some of my team
even more so now.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Instagram's always listening.
Yeah.
But actually, what you guys are doing is all the stuff that my clients are a slightly different profile to you. We don't work in the B2C world so much, it's B2B. But it's that lovely human-centered content. So, you're buying into you, to Debbie, to, the content that you guys are developing is person first.
Yeah.
And I think in the world that we live in, and when you're trying to build trust and engagement, I just don't see there's any other way.
No. I agree. And you're bombarded by these ads, aren't you, on Instagram or your social platform of choice every day. And when there is a real person telling you about their experience, you make a judgment at that point, don't you? Do I believe them? Does that feel real? Do they feel like a real person? Do I see myself in them in some way? Can I connect with them? And that's been a really important part of our kind of testing strategy as well, to work out what works. And we're still learning. Yeah. Still making mistakes and still figuring it out. There isn't just one blueprint that everyone can apply, and if there was, every brand would be doing it.
Yeah. What tactics have you tried?
Everything we can afford to do. So we in the first year, it really was about punching above our weight. We did a lot of events. We felt immediately bigger, I think, than we were, which I think gave our customers confidence. It kind of gave this impression of the company being a lot more developed and further along the line than it was when it was only 4 or 5 months old. We in the first year really focused on one product. In the second year, we launched product 2, which was a sleep product, and we created that because we listened to the community, listened to what they were saying. We surveyed them all the time. We asked them, which symptoms are bothering you the most, and recognizing that if you don't get a good night's sleep, nothing else is going to work very well. So if you can prioritize sleep and get that quality of sleep, and by the way, women need more sleep than men as well, we're going to function better. And when your body's going through any type of change, you need that sleep. So we really wanted to help our women sleep better. And then sort of we're now entering into the next phase, which is multi-product. So we've got some very exciting products coming out this year. And my kind of focus now in the business is really all about product development and nutrition. So really focusing on what are we creating? Why are we creating it? What are the ingredients? Why are they going to work? Working with our resident doctor, making sure that we are creating something that not only sounds brilliant, but is going to be very effective because we're using the best quality ingredients that we can source.
Yeah, I love that. And the fact that you have a doctor and a nutritionist and people that have had these lived experiences. I think, again, that all gives the brand that kind of stamp of approval and authenticity and trust. So it's all very, I mean, like you say, it's not just about one element. You've got to think about the product, the go-to-market strategy, the platforms that you live and breathe on, the platforms that you then push the product out on from a marketing perspective. Like there's so much to consider, which I find like already my mind is whirring. You talked about community. Yeah. How did you go about building that community?
So we started really with social. So community is, I guess, one way of describing your followers and how they engage with you. Then we also have our community of customers, and most of that communication is via email. So one of the other platforms that we work with is Klaviyo. We're working with that platform to deal with all of our email communication, keeping our customers in the brand, keeping them taking the product every day, because surprise, surprise, supplements don't work if you don't take them regularly. And that's probably one of the biggest barriers to getting success, is that people forget to take things. So helping them with those reminders, giving them suggestions around when to take it. So for example, the two that we have in market today are both to take at night. So we'll say, leave it by your bed, take it last thing at night. It's much easier to remember it than, being dotted somewhere around the house. The probiotic was formulated so it didn't need to go in the fridge, which with the other brand you mentioned does need to go in the fridge. Yes. And that can be problematic because if you travel, you'll forget and you get out of the routine. You might just be busy and walk out the house quickly in the morning and forget to have taken it. So making everything really accessible and easy to take. We generally use capsules and tablets for that reason, because it's easy. You can put it in a box, you can take it with you, you can pack it, all of that. It makes it quite simple. Probably gone off on a tangent there.
No, I love that though. Yeah, no, but it ties in how that you're supporting the community. Do you think, I'm asking about the future, if you haven't got one already, will you move to having your own?
We've talked about that a lot along the journey. And I guess for anyone building businesses like this, there are 100 things you could do, but you've only got time to do some of them. So we have talked about building a community. There are other communities out there in the sort of menopause space that are there to help women that have questions, who are unsure, who want help with their HRT, who want to speak to other women going through similar experiences. And for now, we're not doing that because our absolute priority is in building the product and building the range so that we can have solutions, effective solutions out there to solve the biggest problems that women are telling us that they have. Maybe we come to that in the future, but right now it's very much about that supplement range. And the other kind of community aspect as well is events. So one of the things that I've really loved is having the opportunity to have women in the room. And that'll be women from our customer base, from our broader community, women that we know, influential women, investors, whoever it might be, all in that shared space together. And we will have panels of brilliant speakers who are really experienced in their field, whether it be medical or psychological or fitness and nutrition, that can advise and not only kind of give a talk, but also answer questions, because I think often the most interesting part of those events is the Q&A. And what you see around the room is other women going, oh yeah, I feel like that. And that sort of validation of hearing somebody else say, this is what I've been going through, can really help people realise that they're not the only one, they're not going mad, it is quite common, it is quite normal, and here are some things that you might want to try.
I love that. I mean, I obviously do probably 80% of my business in events, very different, but it's just amazing when you see, I think there's something really special. Like we've I've done a International Women's Day event every year religiously, which I probably would talk to you about after this. I think there's something really special about women coming together and sharing those experiences. It's the same with any industry, with any kind of event we do, of course. But maybe it's because I'm a woman as well, but it does feel really, really special whenever we do anything like that, because the learnings, you just can't emulate that in life experience, in real life experience in any other way. And I think the learnings and what we take from those kind of experiences and bringing community together in real life is just amazing.
And I think, from a marketing perspective, that is a bit of a long game, but recognizing that brands that invest in brand and that build brand, which is sort of the first 20 years of my career experience at Mindshare, is really understanding why branding matters.
Yeah.
And then combining that with performance marketing is kind of the formula that we follow. But doing events, doing PR, creating content is that longer term investment in building a brand that people trust, building a brand people connect with, creating shared experiences. As a D2C brand as well, having that real life experience, I think, is really important because it's a real opportunity as well for you to sense check your thinking, the product development as well, doing that listening, really seeing what women are saying and what they're feeling. Because I have the opportunity as well to see clients privately from a clinical perspective, I can bring that into the picture as well, because I can see what actually is going on for them. And I know, the tools that I'm reaching for from a supplement point of view to help them, sometimes things are missing. I'm like, I wish I could find a formula that has this, this, and this in it. And then, through the Better Menopause, I've got that opportunity to create something that can solve that problem, not just for that woman, but for multiple women.
And I think that's, again, the importance of community and listening is everything influences each other, doesn't it? The marketing gives you community, the community gives you feedback, the feedback tells you about the products that you need to create. So the whole, holistic ecosystem works together better, like the Better Menopause, to really drive, the future of the product, the marketing, everything. I mean, it's super exciting. Yeah. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. One question I did have very specifically about the content, because I'm all about content at the moment. The videos that I've seen and the content that I've seen is videos of Debbie to camera, like talking to the camera about, her experience, the products, things like that. What content in terms of, and I'm talking, very basic, like which, and I know it's very hard. Yeah. I'm going to ask a very broad question here. Which content is delivering the most? And of course, it's hard to fully track from, from video to purchase to which platform. But I'd love to know, platform and content wise, where are you seeing any trends in terms of the things that are really working for you?
So our primary platform has been Instagram. And, that might be both because that's where we've mostly invested, but also I think it's where the majority of our audience reside. And, I know it's where I do a lot of my kind of shopping and discovery personally as well. And we found that the content with real people that you can see yourself in works very well. And then content from qualified individuals, whether they're doctors, nutrition, whatever sector they're in, that also works well. So it's about having somebody with some authority and experience to say, this is a good thing for these reasons, or doing that education piece, like we were talking about right at the beginning. Did you know that your gut health is so interrelated with your hormones, and helping women go, oh, I didn't realize that. So what, my bloating is connected to my perimenopause? That makes sense. You know what? I was never bloated until I turned 41. Why am I bloated now? So just helping people piece together the jigsaw of what's going on for them. That kind of content gets traction. And, we want our content to be polished to some degree, because we want the brand to feel elevated and inspirational, but still really accessible and relatable. And that's a really hard thing to find and to get right. But we make content with customers, those kind of real customer testimonials where they can say, hey, you know what, this is how I was feeling, and this product has done this for me, in a way that feels very genuine. It's hard to do, but if you can find those real stories, they're the ones that really do kind of cut through.
Yeah, I love user-generated content. I must say that's how I'm often pulled into
Yeah.
brands because
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I empathy, like you want to create that empathy with your content, I think. And you can't do that in a slide share or in a graphic. Look, I'm not saying that they're not important. They need to be part of the marketing mix and your content. But I think those real person stories, because, I mean, I don't browse TikTok probably as much as I would as a marketeer, but the TikTok generation and Instagram is moving that way. It's very much 2-person video.
Yeah.
They are a video. They actually are kind of moving towards now calling themselves a messaging platform, which is interesting with Instagram.
Okay, yeah.
So I do think that kind of person-led content, whether you're B2B, B2C, product, whatever, service, whatever, I do think that is the future of content, because we're people and we want to engage with people and have empathy and understand stories that we can resonate with and go, oh my God, yeah, me too. Like that could help me. That's probably how I've learned most of the stuff I've learned about menopause, from browsing Instagram.
I think that's where a lot of people have got their education from. And we've gone from there being almost no content on there about it to, if you're in a certain age group, to literally your feed being dominated by it, especially if you interact with it. And as a brand, we have to think about, well, how do we add value to that conversation? How do we stay in our lane? How do we be consistent in the story that we're telling, but also diverse in the range of content that we can show, so that people are, they're looking forward to seeing it, and it's not repetitive. You're not seeing the same thing all the time, but still recognizable, so that oh, that's someone from the Better Menopause, isn't it? Or I recognize that. And you've got that kind of consistent, ongoing narrative. And then making it work for other countries as well. So we are obviously UK based, but we ship to US, to Canada, to Australia, and to Ireland, and they've been our kind of core markets to date. And what works in the UK won't necessarily work in the US, for example. So we work with an influencer there as well that's helped us launch the brand and tell the story, and just having voices that sound authentic to that country are also an important part of it.
Love that. It's so true. I think some people think that they can just repurpose the same content in different countries, and just no.
Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, and you've got to kind of experiment with it.
But more often than not, I find it, the messaging is different. People behave differently. There's so many nuances in different regions that you tend to, you might have some crossover, but you tend to need to create new. Am I right? And have I seen this, or has my mind played tricks on me, which it probably is doing, seeing as I am probably in perimenopause, that you're launching a podcast, or have launched a podcast?
We have got a podcast, yeah. So Debbie runs a podcast, which is Grit and Grace.
Yes.
And it is a combination of every aspect of life, really. So business, health, relationships, transformations, and helping tell those stories with real women that have gone through, life experiences, whatever they might be, that have created, a reason for change, whether that be in their health or in their work, and sharing that story with others so they can be inspired by it as well.
Love that.
So there's first 6 episodes, I think, are either released already or about to be, and more recordings happening next week. So lots of exciting guests coming up.
Amazing. I'm excited to engage with that. That's the kind of content that I want and need. And knowing and having interviewed Debbie and you, I know it's going to be very good.
Yes.
My last question, now this is a new question, I'm asking all of my guests, is a recommendation. So obviously podcast is around, I kind of have 2 core subjects, but the main one is around marketing and innovation. Of course, I have a huge passion for, we met at MadFest. I invited you to come and join me on a panel discussion about, everything that holds women back and can help women get ahead at work. So those are the kind of 2 core subjects. With that in mind, is there anyone that you would recommend that I interview? Or can poach to interview?
Good question.
Or that you would want to hear from.
That I'd want to hear from.
Because I'm going to target them. I'm going to record this and we're going to send it to them.
Yeah, okay. So somebody that runs their own podcast, or somebody that just to be interviewed?
To come and be interviewed on the podcast.
Yeah, I should have time to think about this.
I know, sorry, me shucking that at you right at the end. It's new.
There are so many, but combining that work. Does Elizabeth Day ever get interviewed?
Ooh, great
Because
question.
obviously her podcast is brilliant, and it's one I've listened to for years. And she was the first to really sort of be that kind of big story sharer of other people's stories. But I think her story as well is also interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, get Elizabeth Day on.
Elizabeth Day, here I come. One of my favourite podcasts, actually.
Yeah.
So great show.
Also, Liz Earle. So she's somebody that we've done a lot of work with for the Better Menopause, but I do listen to her podcast. I find it interesting. I think she interviews really interesting people.
Yeah.
And she's very interested in the science of what's happening with our body, that she's made her own journey, a kind of personal experiment and experience that she then goes and shares with others. And along the way, she interviews as many experts as she can through her podcast and shares that. So that is a career pivot as well, given what she created before with the skincare and body brand that she no longer is associated with. But it's a very different career she has now. So I think digging into that's interesting as well. Looking at any of these women that have gone, I'm going to do something else now. In my sort of second coming, I'm going to do something else I find interesting and inspiring.
I love that. I'm going to approach Liz. That's great. In fact, my friend used to be her CMO. So might have a foot in the door there. Thank you so much. Last thing, there's probably loads of resources.
Yes.
Where can people find you? Are there any links? Obviously, please do send them through and we'll put them all in the show notes.
Yep.
But any kind of links or where we can direct people to go and find out more about the Better Menopause and you and Debbie?
Yeah, lots of options depending on your platforms of choice. Obviously the website, thebettermenopause.com. Our socials are all at the Better Menopause. Like, we've named the brand very clearly. Like, it's very clear what it's all about. It is about having a better menopause and better second half. So we are on all of them. We're on LinkedIn as well. We are on TikTok. I'd say primary platforms are our Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Where else? We're on Amazon if you prefer to buy on Amazon as well. So some customers, that's just easy for them. I have my own website as well. So that's jolyallnutrition.co.uk and my own Instagram. So if you want to, you can follow me there as well.
Amazing.
I think that's everything.
I love that. I'm going to put all the links to all of your LinkedIn profiles and everything you've just mentioned in the show notes.
Yeah.
Guys, I hope you have enjoyed listening to Joanna and I, because I have learned so much. I knew I was going to today. And a big thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.